How can a wife's little secret spiral into public humiliation and a lawful ending? What happens when the husband, everyone called jealous, quietly collects receipts, and the punchline arrives in the form of a legal envelope? What if the real consequence of a joke isn't laughter, but the cold, formal sound of your own name on divorce papers? The idea came to me while scrolling through TikTok at 2 in the morning, watching couples do increasingly ridiculous things for viral fame. That's when it hit me. What if I had my boyfriend walk me down the aisle at our vow renewal? Not as some romantic gesture, but as the ultimate inside joke. David would hate it, of course, but that was exactly the point. You want to do what? David looked up from his laptop, his reading glasses perched on his nose in that way that made him look older than his 35 years. A vow renewal ceremony, I repeated, leaning against the kitchen counter of our downtown apartment. It'll be fun, David. When's the last time we did something spontaneous? Phaedra, we've been married for 8 years. We renewed our vows 3 years ago at your mother's insistence. He closed the laptop with deliberate precision, the same way he organized everything else in our life. What's this really about? I could already see him building walls, getting that suspicious look that had been appearing more frequently lately. It was exactly the kind of reaction that proved my point. David had become boring, predictable, and frankly, a little paranoid. It's about us having fun together, I said, moving closer to him. About showing people that marriage doesn't have to be this suffocating traditional thing. We could make it go viral, David. Think about the attention, the engagement. Attention from who? And why do we need our marriage to be entertainment for strangers? There it was again, that tone. Like he was the reasonable one and I was some flighty child with ridiculous ideas. It made my skin crawl. Because, David, some of us don't want to live our entire lives in a beige box. Some of us want to experience joy, spontaneity, connection with the world around us. He rubbed his temples, a gesture I'd seen countless times before. And how exactly would this vow renewal be different from a regular ceremony? This was the moment I'd been building up to. Well, I was thinking Milo could walk me down the aisle. You know, as a joke, like, here's this gorgeous guy everyone assumes I'm with, but plot twist, I'm actually marrying my husband. It would be hilarious. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. David's face went through several expressions: confusion, disbelief, and finally something that looked almost like resignation. Milo, the videographer from your work. Yes, Milo from work. He's just a friend, David. A really good friend who happens to be photogenic and charming, and would make the whole thing more interesting. The same Milo you've been texting until midnight, the one who sends you flowers just because, the one who somehow always needs to work late on the same nights you do. I felt heat rise in my cheeks, but I forced myself to laugh. Oh my God, David, do you hear yourself right now? This is exactly what I'm talking about. You've become this suspicious, jealous person who can't handle me having male friends. It's honestly concerning. Concerning. Yes, concerning. Normal husbands don't interrogate their wives about every friendship, every text message, every late night at work. Normal husbands trust their wives. David stood up slowly, gathering his laptop and papers with that methodical precision that had once seemed endearing, but now felt like a personal attack on my spontaneity. Where are you going? To the guest room. I think we both need some space to think about this conversation. David, come on, don't be dramatic. We're talking about a fun ceremony, not the end of the world. He paused at the doorway, not turning around. Phaedra, I want you to really think about what you're asking me to do. You want me to stand at an altar and watch another man, a man you've been spending increasingly more time with, walk you down the aisle for the entertainment of strangers on the internet. And when I express discomfort with this idea, you tell me I need therapy for being jealous. Because you do need therapy for being jealous. Now he did turn around, and something in his expression made me take a step back. Maybe I do, but maybe you need therapy for thinking this is normal behavior for a married woman. After he left, I sat in the kitchen for a long time, staring at my phone. Milo had sent me a series of texts about a project we were working on, mixed with funny memes and observations about his day. David was right about the timing. It was past midnight, and these conversations had become a regular thing. But that didn't mean anything was wrong. David was just insecure, threatened by the fact that I had a life outside of our marriage. The vow renewal idea was brilliant, actually. It would force him to confront his jealousy issues while creating content that could really take off online. I opened my laptop and started researching venues. If David wouldn't get on board willingly, I'd just have to show him how amazing this could be. The next morning, David was already gone when I woke up. He'd left coffee made and a note saying he had early meetings, but I could tell he was avoiding me. Fine. Let him sulk. I called my mom on the way to work. "Darling, that sounds absolutely brilliant." Clara's voice came through my car speakers with characteristic enthusiasm. "David needs to learn that marriage is about growth and adventure, not possession and control." "Right. I knew you'd understand." "He's being so weird about it, Mom. Like, genuinely concerning levels of jealousy and suspicion." "Honey, I hate to say this, but I've been worried about David's behavior lately. At the last family dinner, he barely spoke to anyone. Just sat there watching you like a hawk. It's not healthy." This was exactly the validation I needed. My mother had always been progressive, forward-thinking. She'd raised me to be independent and strong, not to shrink myself to make insecure men comfortable. "I think I'm going to plan the ceremony anyway," I said. "Maybe once he sees how beautiful and fun it could be, he'll come around." "You absolutely should. And if he can't appreciate what a creative, vibrant woman he married, that's his loss." At work, I found Milo in the break room, looking unfairly handsome, even in casual Friday clothes. He lit up when he saw me, which was exactly the kind of uncomplicated joy that had been missing from my interactions with David. "Hey, beautiful. How's your morning?" "Complicated, but I have an idea that might interest you." I explained the vow renewal concept while we walked to his desk, watching his face for reactions. Milo had this way of listening that made you feel like the most fascinating person in the world. Complete attention, genuine interest, no judgment. "So you want me to walk you down the aisle at your wedding renewal," he said slowly, "while your husband watches?" "It sounds weird when you put it like that, but yes. Think about the visual, Milo. Think about the story we could tell. The subversion of expectations, the humor, the genuine surprise on people's faces." "And David's okay with this?" I hesitated. "David needs to work through some jealousy issues. But once he sees the final product, once he understands the artistic vision, he'll appreciate it." Milo leaned back in his chair, studying me with those green eyes that had gotten me into trouble more than once. Not that anything had actually happened between us. We were friends, close friends who maybe flirted a little, but that was normal. That was healthy. "Phaedra, are you sure about this? Because if we're going to do something this bold, we need to commit completely. Half measures don't go viral." "I'm sure. Are you in?" He grinned, and I felt that familiar flutter in my stomach. "I'm in. But we do this right. Professional videography, perfect lighting, multiple angles. If we're going to break the internet, let's really break it." Planning the vow renewal became an obsession. I spent my lunch breaks researching venues, my evenings coordinating with vendors, and my nights texting Milo about details and logistics. David continued his pattern of early mornings and late nights, speaking to me only when necessary, and with a politeness that felt worse than anger. "The Botanical Garden has an opening next month," I announced over dinner, sliding my laptop across the table to show him photos. "Look how gorgeous this would be for filming." David glanced at the screen without interest. "Filming? Well, yes. The whole point is to create content that people will want to share. Milo thinks we could get picked up by some of the bigger wedding accounts if we do this right." Milo thinks. "David, can you please engage with this conversation like an adult? I'm trying to plan something special for us." He set down his fork and looked at me directly for the first time in days. "Phaedra, I want you to explain to me how having another man walk you down the aisle is something special for us. Because it's unexpected, because it challenges people's assumptions about what marriage should look like, because it shows that we're confident enough in our relationship to play with traditional roles. Or because it gives you an excuse to have Milo's hands on you in front of an audience." The accusation hung in the air like smoke. I felt my face flush with genuine indignation. "That's disgusting, David. The fact that your mind goes there says everything about your mental state and nothing about my intentions." "My mental state." "Yes, your mental state. You've become paranoid and suspicious, and frankly, it's affecting our marriage more than any friendship I might have." David nodded slowly, as if I'd confirmed something he'd been thinking. "You're right. My mental state is affecting our marriage. I should probably talk to someone about that." "Finally, yes, you should talk to someone. A therapist who can help you work through these jealousy issues before they destroy what we have. I'll make some calls tomorrow." I felt a surge of victory. Maybe this was the breakthrough we needed. Maybe once David started working on his issues, he'd understand that the vow renewal was actually a celebration of our strength as a couple. That night, I heard him on the phone in the guest room. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was serious, professional. Good. He was taking this seriously. The next few weeks passed in a blur of planning and preparation. I created a private Instagram account to document the process, sharing behind-the-scenes content with a small group of friends and family. The response was overwhelmingly positive. "This is so creative," Naomi commented on a photo of Milo and me, looking at fabric samples. "You're going to break the internet." "Goals," added my cousin Riley. "Wish I was brave enough to do something this bold." Even my mother-in-law Janice liked a few posts, though she didn't comment. I took that as tacit approval. David, meanwhile, had indeed started therapy. He mentioned it casually one morning, the same way he might mention a dentist appointment. "How's it going?" I asked, genuinely curious. "It's helpful. Dr. Martinez is helping me understand some patterns in my thinking that aren't serving me well." "That's great, David, really. I'm proud of you for taking this step." He nodded but didn't elaborate. If anything, he seemed calmer lately, more focused. He'd been organizing things around the house with even more precision than usual. Filing papers, updating passwords, backing up photos, spring cleaning, he called it. 2 weeks before the ceremony, Milo and I met at the botanical garden for a final walkthrough. The space was even more beautiful than the photos had suggested, with natural lighting that would be perfect for filming. "We should do a practice run," Milo suggested as we stood at the entrance to the main garden. "Make sure the timing is right, the angles work, all that." "Good idea. David's working late tonight anyway." Milo offered me his arm, and we walked slowly down the path that would serve as our aisle. He was right about the timing. It needed to be deliberate, ceremonial, but not so slow that it became awkward. "You know," he said as we reached the spot where David would be waiting, "I keep thinking about what happens after we go viral." "What do you mean?" "I mean, this kind of attention can change things. People will have opinions about your marriage, about you, about David. Are you prepared for that?" I hadn't really considered the negative attention, but I wasn't worried. People always have opinions. The important thing is that we're being authentic to ourselves. And David, is he being authentic to himself by going along with this? The question bothered me more than I wanted to admit. David is learning to trust me and support my creative expression. That's what marriage is about, growth and compromise. Milo stopped walking and turned to face me. "Phaedra, can I ask you something directly?" "Of course." "Are you happy in your marriage?" The question caught me off guard. That's complicated." "It shouldn't be complicated." We were standing very close now, close enough that I could smell his cologne and see the flecks of gold in his green eyes. close enough that when he reached up to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Milo, I know. I know you're married. I know this is supposed to be just a joke, just content for the internet. But Phaedra, the way he treats you, the way he makes you feel like you have to justify every friendship, every creative impulse, that's not love. That's control. It's not that simple. Isn't it? When's the last time David made you feel the way you feel when you're with me? When's the last time he looked at you like you were the most interesting person in the room? I wanted to argue, to defend my marriage, but the words wouldn't come. Because he was right. David used to look at me like that, but somewhere along the way, his expression had changed from admiration to suspicion. The ceremony is in 2 weeks, I said finally. I know. And I'll be there, playing my part, walking you down the aisle to him. But after that what? After that, maybe you'll be ready to admit what we both know is true. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while David slept in the guest room. Milo's words echoed in my mind, mixing with memories of how David and I used to be. We'd been happy once, hadn't we? Or had I just been too young to recognize the signs of his controlling nature? I picked up my phone and scrolled through old photos of us. There was David at my college graduation, beaming with pride. David on our honeymoon, laughing at something I'd said. David holding our daughter Lila when she was tiny, looking at both of us like we were his whole world. But when was the last time I'd seen that expression? When was the last time he'd looked at me with anything other than wariness and disappointment? Maybe that was the real tragedy. Maybe we'd grown apart so gradually that I hadn't noticed until Milo showed me what it felt like to be appreciated again. I opened my laptop and started writing a blog post about the upcoming ceremony, about challenging traditional marriage roles and refusing to be constrained by other people's expectations. It felt good to articulate my thoughts, to frame this whole situation as a positive step forward rather than the complicated mess it had become. As I wrote, I heard sounds from the guest room, David's printer running, papers shuffling, quiet phone conversations. He was probably working on some project for his job, organizing and documenting with his usual obsessive attention to detail. I posted the blog entry and immediately got responses from friends and followers. The support felt validating, confirming that I was on the right path, even if David couldn't see it yet. "You're so brave," Naomi texted. "I wish I had your courage to live authentically." "This is going to be amazing," my mother wrote. "David is lucky to have such a creative, independent wife." Only one response gave me pause. It was from David's mother, Janice. "Honey, I hope you know what you're doing. Some jokes aren't funny to everyone involved." But I dismissed her concern. Janice had always been traditional, conservative in her views about marriage and family. She didn't understand that relationships could evolve, that love could take different forms. The ceremony was going to be beautiful. It was going to be meaningful. And maybe, just maybe, it would force David to see me the way Milo did, as someone worth celebrating rather than suspecting. The morning of the vow renewal dawned clear and bright, perfect for filming. I woke up with butterflies in my stomach, the kind of nervous excitement that comes before a big performance. Because that's what this was, really. A performance designed to challenge expectations and create something memorable. David was already up, dressed in the navy suit we'd agreed on, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a manila folder. "Big day," he said without looking up. "The biggest. Are you nervous?" "No, not nervous." Something in his tone made me pause. He seemed almost peaceful, resigned maybe, but not in a defeated way. More like someone who had made a difficult decision and found clarity in it. "David, are you okay with this? Really okay? Because if you're not, we can still call it off." Now he did look at me, and for a moment I saw a flicker of something that might have been sadness. "Phaedra, I want you to do exactly what you think is best. Don't hold back. Don't compromise your vision for my sake. That's surprisingly supportive. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately about what I want, what I need, what I'm willing to accept. Dr. Martinez has been very helpful in that regard. Good. That's good. I'm glad therapy is working for you. It really is. I spent the morning getting ready with an attention to detail that would have made David proud. Hair, makeup, dress, everything had to be perfect for the cameras. Milo arrived early to help with setup, looking devastatingly handsome in his charcoal grey suit. "You look incredible," he said, and the warmth in his voice made me feel more beautiful than I had in months. "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." We drove to the botanical garden separately, maintaining the illusion that this was just a fun, spontaneous idea rather than something we'd been planning in intimate detail for weeks. The photographer and videographer Milo had hired were already there, setting up equipment and testing angles. Our families began arriving around 2 o'clock. My mother looked radiant in her approval, hugging me tightly and whispering about how proud she was of my creativity. Janice was more reserved, greeting me politely but keeping her distance. Lila, our 8-year-old daughter, seemed confused by the whole thing but excited to see her parents dressed up. "Mummy, why are you getting married again?" she asked as I adjusted her flower girl dress. "We're not getting married again, sweetheart. We're just celebrating our marriage in a new way." "Why is Mr. Milo here?" The question was innocent enough, but it made me uncomfortable. "Mr. Milo is helping with the ceremony. He's going to walk Mommy down the aisle." "But Daddy's already here. Why isn't Daddy walking with you?" "Because Daddy will be waiting at the altar. It's like a game, Lila. A fun surprise." She nodded but still looked puzzled. Children have a way of cutting through adult complications to the heart of things, and her confusion reminded me that this whole situation might look different from the outside than it did in my head. David arrived exactly on time, greeting everyone with his usual quiet politeness. He seemed relaxed, almost detached, as if he were attending someone else's event rather than renewing his own marriage vows. "Ready for this?" I asked him as the photographer gathered the family for preliminary shots. "Absolutely. Are you?" "I think so. It feels surreal, you know. Like we're about to step into some alternate version of our life." "That's one way to put it." The ceremony itself was smaller than I'd originally envisioned, maybe 30 people total, mostly family and close friends. But the intimacy made it feel more meaningful, more personal. The cameras captured everything from multiple angles as our guests took their seats among the flowers and greenery. When it was time, Milo offered me his arm with a smile that was equal parts charming and nervous. "Last chance to back out," he murmured. "Not a chance. Let's make history." Walking down that aisle on Milo's arm felt like floating. The photographer captured every step, every smile, every surprised expression from our guests. I could see people whispering, some looking delighted by the unconventional choice, others appearing confused or uncomfortable. David waited at the altar with the officiant, his expression unreadable. As we approached, Milo squeezed my hand gently before placing it in David's and stepping back to join the guests. "Dearly beloved," the officiant began, "we gather today to celebrate the renewal of vows between David and Phaedra, a couple who clearly believes in writing their own rules." The ceremony proceeded according to the script we'd agreed on. Personal vows about growth and change, about choosing each other every day, about building a marriage that honored both independence and commitment. David's vows were beautiful, speaking about forgiveness and acceptance, and the courage to let people be who they truly are. When it came time for the kiss, he held me close and whispered, "I hope you got everything you wanted from this." "I did," I whispered back, though something in his tone made me uncertain. The reception was held in the garden's pavilion, with cocktails and dancing and toasts from family members. The whole thing felt magical, like we'd successfully pulled off something truly special and unique. But as the evening progressed, I started noticing things. David spent most of his time talking quietly with his mother and brother, their conversations stopping whenever I approached. Milo was charming and attentive, but he seemed distracted, checking his phone frequently and stepping away to take calls. "Everything okay?" I asked him during a slow song. "Yeah, just work stuff. You know how it is." But I could tell something was off. The easy intimacy we'd shared during the planning process felt strained, artificial, like he was performing a role rather than being himself. The real surprise came during the cake cutting. As David and I posed for photos, our daughter Lila tugged on my dress. "Mummy, why was Mr. Milo holding your hand funny?" "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "During the walking part, he was holding your hand like you do with Daddy sometimes. The special way." I felt heat rise in my cheeks as I realized what she'd noticed. During our practice sessions, Milo and I had developed a natural intimacy that apparently translated on camera in ways I hadn't intended. "It was just for the ceremony, Lila. Just pretend." But looking around at our guests, I could see that others had noticed too. Janice was watching me with an expression of barely concealed disapproval. Some of our friends were whispering among themselves, their glances moving between Milo, David, and me. "Phaedra," David said quietly, "can we talk privately for a minute?" We stepped away from the reception, walking to a quiet corner of the garden where the photographer couldn't follow. "How do you think it went?" I asked, suddenly needing his approval more than I'd expected. "Exactly as planned. You and Milo looked very comfortable together, very natural." "David, what's that supposed to mean?" "It means you got what you wanted. The perfect performance, the viral moment, the validation that you're not constrained by traditional marriage roles." "Why do you sound angry? This was beautiful. This was about us." "Was it? Because from where I was standing, it looked like it was about you and him." "That's ridiculous. Milo is just a friend who helped make this special." David nodded slowly, the same way he'd been doing for weeks. "I know exactly what Milo is, Phaedra, and after tonight, I think everyone else does too." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm done pretending this is normal. I'm done being gaslit into thinking I'm crazy for noticing what's right in front of my face." "David, you're being paranoid again. This is exactly what we talked about in therapy." "No," he interrupted, and there was something final in his voice. "This is exactly what I talked about in therapy. The difference between reasonable concerns and paranoid jealousy. The difference between supporting your spouse and enabling their disrespect." "Disrespect? I just renewed my vows to you in front of our family and friends. You had another man walk you down the aisle at our vow renewal while your daughter asked why he was holding your hand the special way. You spent weeks planning intimate details with him, texting him until midnight, meeting him for private rehearsals. And when I expressed discomfort with any of this, you told me I needed therapy for being jealous. Because you do need therapy for being jealous. I needed therapy to understand that I'm not jealous, Phaedra. I'm married to someone who doesn't respect our marriage." The conversation was interrupted by Milo approaching with 2 glasses of champagne. "Sorry to interrupt, but they're about to do the final toast." David looked at him for a long moment, then at me, then back at him. Perfect timing, as always. We returned to the reception for the closing festivities, but the mood had shifted. David was polite but distant, going through the motions without enthusiasm. When it came time for the final toast, he raised his glass and said simply, "To authenticity, to people showing you exactly who they are." The guests drank to that, though many looked confused by the cryptic nature of the sentiment. As we packed up to leave, I felt a mixture of exhaustion and accomplishment. The ceremony had been beautiful, the footage would be incredible, and we'd created something truly unique and memorable. "That was amazing," Naomi gushed as she hugged me goodbye. "You're going to be famous after this goes online." "I hope so. It felt good to do something bold and creative." "Your husband seemed a little quiet, though. Is he okay?" "David's just tired. This whole thing was a lot of work to organize." But as I watched David methodically packing the car with our ceremony materials, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed, not just between us, but in him. He moved with the purposefulness of someone who had made a decision, though I couldn't imagine what that decision might be. "Ready to go home?" he asked as he closed the trunk. "Ready. Are you happy with how everything turned out?" "I got exactly what I expected," he said, which somehow didn't feel like the reassurance I was looking for. The video went live 3 days later, and the response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, we had thousands of views, hundreds of comments, and dozens of shares across multiple platforms. Milo had edited it beautifully, capturing every moment of surprise and delight as I walked down the aisle on his arm toward my waiting husband. "OMG, this is everything," read one comment. "Relationship goals." "I can't even imagine being this confident and secure," wrote another. "Your husband must really trust you." "This is what modern love looks like," added a third, "breaking down outdated traditions and creating something authentic." I screenshotted the best comments and shared them on my social media accounts, basking in the validation and attention. Friends from college were reaching out, lifestyle bloggers were asking for interviews, and several wedding planning accounts wanted to feature our story. "You're famous," Naomi texted with a string of fire emojis. I saw the video shared in 3 different Facebook groups already. My mother called that evening, practically breathless with excitement. "Darling, I just got off the phone with your Aunt Susan. She said her entire book club is talking about your video. They think you're absolutely brilliant." "It does feel pretty amazing," I admitted. "I knew it would get attention, but this is beyond what I imagined." "And David, how is he handling the spotlight?" I glanced toward the guest room, where David had been spending most of his time since the ceremony. "He's adjusting. You know how private he is." "Well, he better get used to it. This kind of viral moment could really open doors for you both." But David didn't seem interested in the doors being opened. If anything, he appeared to be closing them. He'd stopped checking our shared social media accounts, declined interview requests without consulting me, and responded to congratulations from friends and family with polite but brief thank yous. "People at work are talking about the video," I told him over breakfast the next morning. "HR wants to discuss featuring it in the company newsletter." "That's nice for you." "For us, David. This reflects well on both of us." "Does it?" "Of course it does. It shows that we have a strong, secure relationship, that we're creative and willing to take risks together." He looked up from his coffee with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Is that what it shows?" "What else would it show?" "I think different people are seeing different things in that video, Phaedra." Before I could ask what he meant, my phone buzzed with a notification. The video had been picked up by a major wedding blog, with an article titled, "Couple's Unconventional Vow Renewal Goes Viral, but Not Everyone's Laughing." I opened the article eagerly, expecting more praise and analysis of our creative choices. Instead, I found a more nuanced take that made me increasingly uncomfortable as I read. While some viewers are praising the couple's modern approach to marriage, the article read, others are questioning the appropriateness of having another man walk the bride down the aisle at her vow renewal. Comments on the original video reveal a divided audience, with many expressing concern for the husband's feelings and questioning the true nature of the relationship between the bride and her escort. I scrolled down to the comments section and felt my stomach drop. Mixed in with the positive responses were increasingly critical observations. "Am I the only one who thinks this is weird? The husband looks miserable. That's not how you hold hands with a friend. Something else is going on here. I feel bad for the husband. He's clearly not okay with this, but feels pressured to go along with it. This isn't progressive. This is public humiliation disguised as empowerment. Look at the body language between the wife and the other guy. Then look at how distant she is from her actual husband. Yikes." I felt heat rise in my cheeks as I read comment after comment dissecting our ceremony, our relationship, our motivations. People were analyzing every gesture, every expression, every moment of contact between Milo and me. "David," I said, my voice tighter than I intended, "have you seen the comments on the video?" "No. Should I?" "Some people are saying they're misinterpreting things. They think there's something inappropriate about my friendship with Milo." Imagine that. This isn't funny. These comments could affect our reputations, our careers. People are making assumptions about our marriage based on a few seconds of video. David set down his coffee cup with deliberate precision. "Phaedra, what exactly did you think would happen when you posted intimate footage of yourself with another man at your wedding renewal?" "Intimate footage? It was a ceremony. It was symbolic." "Was it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you gave the internet a front row seat to watch you choose him over me in front of our families." "That's not what happened. Isn't it? You planned every detail of that ceremony with Milo. You practiced walking down the aisle with him. You held his hand in a way that made our 8-year-old daughter ask questions. And when people point out that this looks inappropriate, you're surprised." I wanted to argue, but the comments were getting worse. Someone had screenshotted moments from the video where Milo and I looked particularly intimate, comparing our body language to how David and I interacted. The husband's face during the ceremony tells the whole story. One particularly viral comment read, "This man is watching his marriage end in real time." "I need to respond to these," I said, opening my laptop. "I need to clarify what actually happened." "Do you? Or do you need to think about why so many strangers can see something that you claim isn't there?" I spent the next hour crafting responses, explaining that Milo was just a friend, that the ceremony was about challenging traditional roles, that David had been fully supportive of the entire process. But for every explanation I posted, 10 more critical comments appeared. The situation got worse when someone found Milo's social media accounts and started posting screenshots of his interactions with me over the past few months. Late-night text exchanges, photos from our work meetings, comments on my posts that seemed far too familiar for a casual friendship. "This is insane," I told Naomi over the phone. "People are stalking our social media accounts, analyzing every interaction like we're celebrities." "Maybe you should take the video down," she suggested. "Let things cool off for a while." "Absolutely not. That would be admitting that we did something wrong, and we didn't. This is just internet mob mentality. People love to tear down anything that challenges their narrow worldview." But even as I said it, I was starting to have doubts. Not about my friendship with Milo, that was innocent, regardless of what strangers on the internet thought, but about the wisdom of making our personal lives so public. David, meanwhile, seemed completely unaffected by the online drama. He went to work, came home, ate dinner, and spent his evenings in the guest room working on whatever project had been consuming his attention for weeks. When reporters called the house, he politely declined to comment. When friends asked about the controversy, he simply said it would resolve itself. "Aren't you concerned about this affecting your reputation at work?" I asked him, after a particularly brutal day of online criticism. "My reputation at work is based on my performance and professionalism, not on viral videos of my personal life. But people are saying horrible things about our marriage. Are they wrong?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. "Of course they're wrong. We're fine, David. We're dealing with some challenges, but what marriage doesn't?" "You're right. What marriage doesn't deal with the challenge of one spouse publicly humiliating the other for internet fame?" "I didn't humiliate you. I created something beautiful and meaningful." "For who, Phaedra? Who was that ceremony meaningful for? Because it wasn't for me, and it wasn't for our daughter, and it apparently wasn't even for our marriage. It was for you and Milo and the strangers on the internet who you wanted to impress." "That's not true." "Then explain to me what I got out of that ceremony. What benefit I received from watching my wife walk down the aisle with another man while our families watched, and our daughter asked why he was holding your hand the special way." I couldn't answer that question, partly because I'd never really considered it from his perspective. The ceremony had been about challenging expectations, about creating content, about proving that our relationship was strong enough to withstand unconventional choices. But what had David gained from any of that? "I thought it would help us grow closer," I said finally. "I thought it would force us to communicate better, to trust each other more." "And how's that working out?" That night, I lay in bed scrolling through increasingly vicious comments about our video. Someone had created a compilation of moments where Milo and I looked too close, set to music that made it look like a romantic montage. Another person had analyzed David's facial expressions throughout the ceremony, creating a timeline of what they called his emotional breakdown in real time. The worst part was that some of the criticism was coming from people I knew. Acquaintances from college, former coworkers, even some family friends were sharing the video with their own commentary about modern marriage and appropriate boundaries. "I feel sorry for the husband," David's cousin had written on Facebook. "Some things should be private." This is what happens when people value social media attention over their actual relationships, added someone from my yoga class. I wanted to respond, to defend myself and explain the situation, but every time I tried to type a response, I found myself wondering if they might be right about some things. Had I prioritized the viral potential over David's feelings? Had I been so focused on creating content that I'd lost sight of what the ceremony was supposed to represent? But no, that was exactly the kind of self-doubt that these internet bullies wanted to create. David and I were fine. Our marriage was strong enough to weather this temporary storm. And once the attention died down, we'd be able to appreciate what we'd accomplished together. I just needed to stay strong and not let the critics get inside my head. 2 weeks after the video went viral, HR called me in and slid a folder across the table. Articles, screenshots, clients asking questions, reporters calling. Sandra didn't shame me. She cited reputational risk and the morality clause, then placed me on administrative leave. I came home expecting David to defend me. He didn't. He said consequences were predictable when I kept doubling down and calling boundaries jealousy. Then he told me his attorney had scheduled mediation for tomorrow. Divorce. That night, Milo stopped answering, my friends turned cautious, and I finally watched the video like a stranger would. The truth was obvious. I hadn't showcased a marriage. I'd showcased betrayal. The mediation meeting felt like court without a judge. David arrived in his best suit, calm and finished with arguments. In the conference room, his attorney laid out the petition, custody terms, and a confidentiality agreement because my private life had become public content. David didn't yell. He presented proof, screenshots, call logs, late-night locations, witness statements, and the vow renewal footage that showed what I'd denied. When I begged for counseling, he reminded me I'd called him paranoid for months. Milo finally texted to take a break, and the fantasy collapsed. David said the papers would be filed Friday.